So, today's been a very interesting day. Not a very pleasant one. Past week has been kind of a hell in itself, but something was brought up today that kind of upsetting, and I figured I'd talk about it for once. There's not a lot of people out there discussing this kind of topic of social filters, though I believe it should be. It should be an open conversation. There we go. As some of you may know, and not all, I do have autism. And for those who kind of want to go through, and as I've heard in the past, I have seen autism, and you don't act like that. People with autism can't function, etc., etc. And that's not true, actually. First of all, I have what's called high-functioning autism. And it's a totally different branch of what you're referring to when you're thinking of low-functioning autism. There is a difference. There's a different level of functionality when it comes to them. So, that being said, there's a lot of people out there who have mental disabilities that causes them to have a lack of a social filter. And those will vary in hundreds of different ways, some for the better, some for the worse. I have met quite a few people like myself in the past few years. Since the diagnosis happened, which, don't get me wrong, was one of the greatest things ever, answers so many questions, including the social filter thing. People who do not have social filters, for whatever reason, maybe their brains just work too quickly, their thought processes are different, their empathy levels work differently. You need to understand that, one, in today's world, they do not teach you how to function accordingly if you don't have them, because, to tell you the truth, the people that are supposed to be teaching you, doctors and parents and such, they probably have social filters. And if they don't have social filters, chances are they weren't taught very properly or successfully to teach you how to do it. And it can cause the lack of tools to work with the lack of social filters, and how to function and how to work with them and everything else. Today, something was brought to my attention that I had made an inappropriate comment that took me a while to remember the conversation, for it happened quite some time ago. And now that I have it in memory pretty much back for the most part, it made me stop and wonder about it. They allowed the behavior to continue and not say anything because they were nervous to make myself feel uncomfortable. And as much as I am grateful for that, I mean, that kind of consideration takes quite a lot. That's some bravery there. But at the same time, it doesn't help the individual with the social filter. And it's kind of a tough thing to say, do you approach the person and say, hey, went too far, or do you let it go? Do you let this one go and the next time you say something? And it's a very difficult thing, because you got to really judge and gauge who the person is and what problems they have. For me, example, I get put into a very uncomfortable spot and my brain starts going into overload. For me, I go into variables, which is how I unfortunately see life itself in the world, is through equations. And that makes things very, very difficult. I start really going through thousands of possibilities and thought patterns. But if done properly, and which can be done very simply, actually, just takes practice, you can actually discuss with the person. For example, and I know this is a joke among those in my circle, a Sheldon sign. A Sheldon sign is a sarcasm sign. If anyone who has watched the beginning episodes of Big Bang Theory, there is a running joke of Sheldon asking, is there a sarcasm sign? And of course that was supposed to be sarcasm, but Sheldon didn't catch it, so he asked a question. I have found that sarcasm signs work remarkably well. Whether you touch a person on the arm when you're in public, or let them know and then make a joke so that way it eases them up a bit, those little things really do help out a lot. And it allows those of us who struggle with this to be able to learn, and hopefully, the first time, depending on what the situation is and the person, myself, it takes many times to learn. And it hardly ever becomes automatic. The other situation that you run into is most of us who have social filter inadequacies, disabilities, social filter disabilities. I think we'll call it that. It's kind of funny, it makes me laugh. We, at least those that are like myself, and I have met a few now, we look at the person we are talking to in the environment to set a foundation, to set our barriers of what we can and cannot do and say. So if you don't give us the Sheldon sign or sarcasm sign, and you don't let us know that, hey, we've come too close to a line or a barrier, the behavior will continue because you're laughing, you're smiling. And at that point, that has become a barrier line, a boundary. How are we to know that we did something wrong if the person that we trust does not set such boundaries down and in a way to explain it to us so that way we can see it? We're not stupid. We're not dumb. We're not, as to use the term in an old sense, retarded. We don't have a deficiency in our brain. A lot of these disabilities that causes these problems, we're actually very intelligent. Where we lack in some areas that's normal for you, we're heightened in others that maybe, I don't know what everyone else is like, or a majority, or since we are a minority, the intelligence level of being able to organize certain things is extremely high. It is an amazing skill, and when taught properly, is just remarkable. But like I said, it comes with its price. So you can talk to us. You can say, hey, okay, that's a line. Be patient, work with us, talk to us, and we'll get it. If you are out in public and you run into somebody like that, and you don't get the opportunity to really learn them, it's okay to say, hey, I know you're joking around, you're having fun, or you didn't realize it, but you kind of went a little close to my, my barrier, my line, my bubble, my space, tell them how it made you feel, but tell them that it's okay. Ensure them, don't just scold them or punish them, but, console them too, so that way they don't feel as bad. A lot of people who have these issues, when they do something wrong, they can beat themselves up really, really bad. There's several disabilities out there that, unfortunately, it seems to be a pattern that when they are lacking certain filters, because of the lack of filters, they have probably ran into a lot of issues in their life. And those issues has caused them to not like themselves very much in these areas. It can make them feel like everyone, the whole world, just a group is attacking them. Third wheel, that they can never do anything right. And that can grow, especially in today's society, unfortunately, where you have these individuals who don't want to take the time to learn, or take the time to explain things. And when that happens, I'm trying to get the light right. I decided to park in a parking lot. There we go. And it creates this pretty much a PTSD situation. So you consult, tell them that it's okay. Tell them that mistakes happen. If you make a mistake and you're trying to learn, you would want the same in return. We're no different. And answer questions or be prepared to change topic so that way they can run it through their own way, but be prepared to come back at it later on, and ask them, hey, are you okay? Like I said, I wanted to make sure everything was fine. You didn't do anything wrong. It was a mistake. And by doing this, you're creating an environment where people can learn. For those who actually know me, I have, what I like calling foot and mouth disease. I put my foot inside my mouth all the time and say things that are just sometimes flat out wrong. I make jokes that are just way out there, and I don't mean to offend anybody. I don't mean to put anybody down or make anybody uncomfortable. That has never been my intention. And I know many people that are like myself. It's not their intention either. And it feels really bad when we find out that we did make a mistake. And it's even worse when people don't tell you, and then one day you find out that you had screwed up. That feels really bad, especially from people that you thought were getting closer, that you could have friends with. Because when you don't have social filters, making friends is very hard. Especially when you have other issues that make it even harder in life. It can be a nightmare. Yeah, my phone's dying. I gotta switch the thing. But it doesn't mean that we hate you because a mistake was made, or you didn't know something, you didn't know how to approach it. It just means that you didn't know better. Just like we make mistakes, you make mistakes too, and that's okay. It is. I would honestly, I can't speak for everybody, but I would honestly want people to learn and their inadequacies as I have to learn with mine. Yes, a lot of us are adults, those with these same issues as children have. And as an adult, we are held responsible for our actions, both fortunately and unfortunately. It makes things very hard because sometimes people do and say things that, like I said, they just don't catch it in time. And then they realize that they did wrong. And what happens if the person takes extreme offense to it? It can scare us pretty well. Police are not always our friends because they don't understand. And, those with mental disabilities can be treated pretty severely, and ADD, autism, schizophrenia. There's so many of them that have so many different variations of social filter inadequacies or social filter disabilities among with so many other things that a lot of us, depending on the level, don't know who we can trust anymore. We don't know who we can allow in close and who's going to betray us or walk away from us. And depending on the stack of the cards, it can be a lot worse for them. And for others, it's easy. I'd like to know their tricks. That would be kind of neat. And to speak from personal experience, for me, it's a very lonely existence. Not knowing what to say and do, not knowing where you're going to screw up. And sometimes it's easier just to honestly stay at the house and be non-social than it is to constantly be making mistakes, getting the glances and the stares, or the facial expressions, which have always been kind of neat. Something else that you should always watch for with those social filter problems, depending on their issues. Like I said, I can't speak for everybody. I can only speak for a small group of people that I have met over the years, and children that unfortunately I was able to help them learn from my mistakes and teach them tools that took me way too many years to learn. And a few friends of mine who have autistic children, I've been able to learn a lot from them. But for people in my group, we watch your facial expressions, we watch your body, we listen to the tone of the voice to the best of our abilities. For me, it's a variable for an equation. I'm not always right, unless I go into a full equation logic form. Then it's a totally different world. And just because you don't say nothing and you think you're hiding it doesn't mean it's always true. When that happens and a person of my caliber senses it or sees it or hears it, our brain goes into equations, and now we're running what we did wrong with no answer, because the final variables pretty much lie with that person. It's better to say something. Be kind, be patient, and say something and have the conversation and communication, knowing that it's going to happen again. It's going to happen again. Put that in your pocket and carry it with you forever. It's going to happen again. It's like a child learning to tie their shoes. They're going to keep messing up with it. Eventually, though, we're going to learn, but just like everybody else, there are certain things you might have tried 1,000 times and you still ain't figured it out. But do that instead of relying on trying to hide it with the facial expressions and that. Because sometimes we may not even catch that, and now we're stuck with very little information and we don't know what to do with it. So I'm willing to, as always, as everybody, those who know me know that I'll never say no to somebody. I'm always willing to help and teach, and I try to be as patient as I can. I try to keep my energy levels. I am pretty hyper at times, at a minimal. I try to watch what I say, but I will never stop helping people or teaching them and being there for them. I know what it's like to be on the other end of that stick, and it's not a fun one. And I don't like being there, and I really don't like doing it to other people. And so you're more than welcome to come to me and ask me questions. If you know somebody that has a individual that has the same issues or similar issues, and you just want to ask questions, I'll be happy to answer what I've learned or what I've been taught, even things that I may not have figured out, put in my life. I can at least pass on the information that I have read or learned from others. And just remember, we are people too, and in a world that we are just now coming into the dawn of understanding what those who struggle daily with and starting to change the way we do things. Remember how you felt, in similar situations, and just be patient and communicate. Imagine what it would have been like, if after you made that big mistake, whatever it was in your life, and what would have been different about it if someone would just sat down or tapped you and said, hey, okay, this is where you went wrong at. Don't worry, it's okay. It happens. And I guarantee it. You'll feel better. Your friend or family member or stranger will feel better. And in the long run, it doesn't just help them out, but it helps you out. It makes you a better person, makes you feel better. And by keeping them continuously learning to become a better friend, imagine what they can show you from a world that you won't be able to see because you don't have the same disabilities or problems or inadequacies or heightened abilities and etc. as you do. So, but on that note, I think I've covered a lot. And for 34 years this year, if I've ever offended anybody and haven't caught on to it, I do apologize. I do try hard. I try to make my friends happy. I try to love my family and do the right things. So, I do try. And I know many others do. So, I hope your night's good, and I hope what I said can help you out or help others out. So, on that note, I'm going grocery shopping at Walmart. I'm going to try to feel better, and usually walking around, get my mind off things a little bit so I can think, reflect upon everything, and try to make the proper adjustments and try to remember that I made those adjustments. That's the fun part, so it doesn't happen again, without having to change who I am in the process. So grocery shopping sometimes help out. I'm going to get a haircut. Haircuts always make me feel much better. And no, I'm not shaving the mustache off. So those girls that want me to shave it off, tough luck. Those of you who love it, don't worry, it's safe. So, but you all have a good night, and like I said, hit me up if you have any questions, you want to learn anything or anything like that, and it'll be good. And don't worry, I'll survive. Maybe depressed right now, but I will survive, and I'm not going to think anything stupid. And I'll do a video on suicidal thoughts, because I've got a few people that have been coming to me having issues too, and we got a few thoughts to help out with that one too. And see if we can get this vlogging thing done that a lot of people have asked me to start doing. So, grocery time. I need bread. You know how hard it is to make a sandwich without bread? You take a bite on the meat, you don't know where your fingers end and where this turkey begins. It's just a big old mess. The peanut butter sticks everywhere. I just don't get it. So, good night and hit me up.